Welcome to another podcast of Learning to Fly. I'm your host, Ryan. The show's sponsored by Basham Construction, unless Brad wants to take it over today. We'd be happy to have that. But do a little laundry list real quick. We are not funded by anybody, so share the show. If you get something out of this, please tell your neighbors, your friends, anybody that would get something out of this, please share the show. But today we have Brad Kuhn. He is running for Plainfield High School School Board. So welcome, Brad. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I did extend this to all 6 candidates, just so you know. And you're the only brave one that had the guts to do it, so I do appreciate that. Not a knock on the others that didn't. It's a big ask. But anyway, so yeah, welcome. How's the campaign been so far?
Interesting. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I would. It falls right in lines with learning to fly.
Yeah?
So it's actually not the Plainfield High School School Board. The school board in Plainfield governs all the schools. So some school districts actually have separate school boards for their district, but Plainfield, it's one school board, covers the whole district. All 5 seats are at-large seats, so that's something else Plainfield does different than other districts. Brownsburg, for instance, you have to vote for the person that lives in the district you live in.
Okay.
And then they'll have, just as an example, maybe they have 3 districts and then 2 at large. Well, Plainfield's all at large. So all 5 people, in theory, could live right next door to each other in Plainfield.
Oh, no kid. I didn't know that.
It's a unique deal, but
Yeah.
it's been interesting. I just tried 2018. I did leadership here in Hendricks County. And we did a case study involving the youth all over Hendricks County, youth pastors, principals. We put out a survey, and we found out that students just have this craving for financial literacy. And they want to learn about it from people they trust, parents, youth pastors, and teachers. And at that time, the current school board president was in my capstone group. We had this information sitting in front of us. We presented it. We all agreed with it. We were so happy with the work we did and the results we got from it. And I just remember she said, "This is great info, but there's just no more time in a day. Teachers don't have any more time in a day." And I thought to myself, but what's more important than financial literacy? Like, it's truly, at the end of the day, what do you use every day of your life? Your hands touch money at some point every day of your life. And we're not preparing kids about it. We don't teach them about it. We don't teach. The public education does not teach about money. If you ever listen or have learned anything about Robert Kiyosaki, this is a pain point for him that he talks about all the time, is financial literacy in our country's down. So that was the first time I was like, man, I got to do something about this.
Right.
But I talked myself out of it. Like, I'm busy. I'm a dad. We're doing this. We're doing that. We've got businesses. I've got enough headaches. Somebody else can deal with it. And I shoved it off to the side. And then, a couple of years later, COVID shows up. And I thought we did a terrible job responding to COVID, period. Just my personal opinion.
From a school level or just everywhere?
Well, everywhere.
Yeah.
We all ran like chickens and put our heads in the sand and act like we didn't, like nothing has ever happened like this before. And we allowed people to tell us how to think and live and be. And,
preach to the choir on that one.
Over time, 4 years later, we learned how much of it was just absolute garbage and fake and made up. And the people that were standing on TV speaking in absolutes, we found out they were just making it up as they went. Yeah. But specific to Plainfield School Corporation, throughout this process of running for the school board, I've done a program called Allies, where you can go behind the scenes and they take you around to the different schools and show you what's happening. And Mr. Olinger gives a talk about his role and how he interacts with all the employees of the corporation. Mr. Shiatovich gives a talk about the school finances, which is good to hear if you've never heard anything like that before. And then Dr. Del Vecchio gives one about the curriculum, and they bring in supplementary people to help out with the information, because obviously, the school corporation is like a business. There's levels and there's chain of command, and other people do things. But I just kept hearing this reoccurring theme again over and over. They were like, "Oh, right before COVID, we started our relationship with HRH, and what a blessing that was. And it just took so much off our plate." And I'm just sitting there as a parent, like, I was pissed off during COVID.
Right.
I was pissed off that my kid is never been in trouble in school, and I'm getting notes home from his teacher that he won't keep his mask on. I'm like, so
same. Yeah.
Then we sit down and we talk to him. He's like, I can't breathe, Dad. I'm like, I'm trying to take this test. I'm supposed to take this test, but I can't breathe and I can't focus. And I'm like, okay. So, we fought our way through that, but they all just multiple times over the course of a month in these different meetings, I heard them say, and then our relationship with HRH and what a blessing that was. And I'm like, it's not a blessing. Right. The school board is a 5-member board that was elected by the taxpayers and parents in this community. They hired you to do a job, and you didn't have the backbone to do it, in my opinion. So you kicked the can over to HRH and said, well, they're the medical experts. We're just going to let them handle it, which in some regards
felt like a pacifier.
It felt like a pacifier. And I'm not bashing HRH, and I'm not saying it's not a good relationship, because school teachers and administrators and everyone across the board, they're not doctors.
Right.
Same reason we don't have a school police force, because they're not in that business. So there is a good relationship there. We have professional nurses in the buildings now, and it's a good partnership. But those nurses are still HRH employees, right? And one of the reasons that I felt like they kicked the can down the road is there's other schools around us that went back to school before we did. They got rid of masks before we did. They got rid of contact tracing. So that means those weren't laws, right? And some of the stuff during COVID, I felt like got passed off. And this is something I've just kind of been unraveling myself, but I call them the P's. We have policies, and that's what we're supposed to follow. But there's also 2 more P's called practices and then procedures.
Sure.
And when you have conversations with a principal or a teacher or any staff or an administrator, you got to be careful to which P they actually say, because if it's a practice or a procedure, then it's not a policy, and they don't have to do it. They choose to do it. And the building leadership at each building is kind of given some latitude to do those things.
Each building or
each building does have the principal has some latitude to work with their staff to come up with things that other buildings don't have. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on it, but the way the cell phone ban in Indiana worked, where they can't have them during instructional time, some don't allow them at all. Some allow them at lunch and passing periods and study halls. It's kind of a building level thing.
Right.
So
I'm kind of shocked they have them at all, to be honest. I mean, I know my son is he uses it all the time, and he shouldn't be. But anyway,
yeah. We'll circle back to the cell phone things. So that was my first, with HRH. I felt like instead of standing up and saying, we have you here to provide a service, we appreciate you being here, we appreciate your expertise, give us the knowledge, and then as the board and the administrators, we're going to take the information we have and we're going to go make a decision that's best for our community.
Right.
We didn't do that. We just said, well, HRH recommends this, so that's what we're going to do. And to me, that's not why you're elected.
Right.
If you're just gonna pass the buck every time it happens, then why are you here?
Yeah. I feel like, and I'm not going to talk about any school board members or anybody running. It's just, and this is a big reason why I started this podcast. I feel like we're surrounded by soft, I won't use any language, soft people, and a lot of snowflakes. There's a ton of them out there. Yeah. If it got a little warm, they'd melt. And I watched that the thing the kids put on at the high school.
Yeah,
which is well done. Kids did a great job. I listened to it. I didn't go. I just felt like everybody's trying to dodge tough questions. I didn't hear a single tough question. Mm-hmm. I'm being serious.
Yeah,
they even talked about transgender. That's not a tough question.
I don't.
That's just something you got to deal with, and everybody's skating around it. I'm like, just talk about it. It's not that deep.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, because I think you actually poked the bear on it a little bit. Not really poked the bear, but you weren't afraid to talk about it, and I appreciate that.
And I don't think you should be. And none of the questions were hard questions. I agree with you.
There wasn't a single hard question there.
But there was a lot of just dancing around topics.
Yeah.
And I, some of that, I was actually at the Kiwanis meeting the other day on Tuesday, and Miss Tutterow from the middle school was there, and we were talking about it, and I made that comment. I said, I don't feel like anybody answered any of the tough stuff. She gave me some perspective I needed to hear. She said, well, I think it's a little more your personality to take on the tough questions.
Yeah.
And some of the others, maybe not so much. And I was like, you know what? I needed to hear that feedback.
Let's talk about that because we're going to go off a rabbit trail here. When I first met you, we coached against each other. I don't know if you remember this, but softball, I used to coach softball years ago. Brooklyn doesn't play anymore. And I'll never forget this because we're just a bunch of testosterone-driven dads, right, out there coaching whatever sport we're coaching, right?
Yeah.
And we're competitive. We all want to win. And whoever you had catching, I don't know, was right in the baseline or whatever. And all these parents are like, blah, blah, blah. And I told whoever's on third, I said, just run right through her. And I hear old Brad go, Ryan, you can't say that. I said, run right through her like it's the World Series. And afterwards, the reason I'm bringing this up is you and I were able to be civil, talk through it, and be friends afterwards. We all know when we coach, there's egos. We're men. If you don't have an ego, by the way, go get one. They don't sell them on Amazon. It's not negative to have an ego, a positive one. But I think that's cool. And then to take that a step further, we're coaching football, and I think I had your son. We're the Boilermakers. Boiler up. And I had a rough season. I had a couple dads get in my face, and it was just a rough season. And you came by my house. I will never forget this. Unannounced, and you said, "Here's a bottle of something I don't even drink, and a glass or something." Like, I just appreciate you stepping up and coaching. And I don't know for the people that coach and don't coach. I don't know. I didn't retire off of that paycheck. Did you? Volunteer coaching?
Never.
So I just want to let you know that went a long way with me. I've known you for a long time. I mean, we're not super close, but we're very, very civil. And I just appreciate that we can disagree on something and still be friends.
Yeah.
Because holy cow, that's like back in the 80s and 90s you could do that. Nowadays it's cancel culture.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that. I don't remember
I didn't think you would.
But I would say the same thing, and because that's how it is. It's part of the game. When you sign up, that we do have a softness that's happening. Like we've gone so far with political correctness, and my dad told me something when we first had a kid. He's like, you can follow. Our oldest is our only son, oldest of four. And, my dad told me right off the bat, he said, you can follow him around and make sure he never falls, he never gets hurt. And, that's not your job.
Right.
Right. But if he's walking towards a wood chipper, it's your job to grab him.
Sure.
If he's walking towards some stones and he's going to slip and skin his knee, that's not your job.
Sure.
He needs to learn from some things. And your job is to balance and figure out, what's natural and what's not natural.
Yeah, we're not helicopter parents.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
And some of this stuff, but, you talk about coaching. I mean, that's just one of them things. I don't even feel like I have time to coach sometimes. Right. I get to end the seasons and I feel like I didn't do a good job, and you have parents come tell you what a great job you did, and you're like, man, really? I feel like I didn't put in enough time on my practice plan or this or that. And so I've been lucky enough, and I've certainly gotten better. Our son is our oldest. Everything we've done with him is, he got screwed because he's the oldest. I don't know any better. So it's trial and error with him. And I've told him before, we've got a, he's 14. We've got an 11-year-old. We've got a 4-year-old, and we have a 9-month-old. And he sees what the 4-year-old gets away with, and he's like, "You wouldn't let me get away." I'm like, Braden. I didn't know any better. I thought you needed to be perfect all the time. You got screwed because you didn't come with an instruction manual, bud. Like we're just trying to figure it out. I can't believe they sent you home from the hospital with us. If you want to know the truth,
it's funny because Ashlyn, our oldest, has she's had her first grandbaby, she's had her first kid. Our first grandbaby. Jen's a grandma, not me, right? Anyway, and it's funny how she parents. I said, you wait till the second one, if there is a second one. Yeah. She's like, well, I do the same thing. And Jen's like, no, you won't. Yeah, it'll be totally different, So, yeah, that's interesting.
I've heard the stories.
But no, yeah, I share the same thing with the coaching. You feel like at the end of the season you could have done more. But I think that's just part of being like an entrepreneur, like with our businesses. I'm never satisfied. Like every job that we complete, I'm thankful we got it. We did a good job. We have a happy customer. But there's always one or two things it's like, man, I wish we could have done that better. But I think that's just who we are. Yeah. And that's a good leadership quality. And I'm glad that you have that.
Yeah.
And I know you'll translate that to the school board too. So
I'm hoping, I I think that's the thing is everybody thinks you're just, you're getting on there and you've got it all figured out and what are you going to do and this and that. And that's not the case,
right.
But I'm also humble enough to understand I don't have all the answers, but I'm not afraid to go find them.
Sure.
If somebody shows up and asks a tough question, I don't have the answer. I'm going to find out the answer and I'm going to get back to you. And we're both going to learn from this.
That's leadership. Literally, that's what it is.
I feel that way. I mean, I used to drive race cars for a living for over a decade, traveling all over the world. And
really?
Yeah.
I did not know that about you.
All over the world. And New Zealand, Australia, all winter long, and then back here in the States from California to North Carolina and everywhere in between all summer long, like 10 months out of the year. And, I always go back and I tell my sports teams this, and I tell my own kids this, is, the races where, you start up front and you just crush everybody and you kick their teeth in and you win by half a lap and, you get a big check, and those are the easiest races.
Right.
And we didn't learn a damn thing.
Right.
Right. Everything we learned before that translated, and that's why that happened.
Yeah.
But the nights where we couldn't figure anything out and stuff's falling apart and we're blowing engines and those are the nights we learned.
That's the growth.
We learned about ourselves. We learned about what we were doing wrong. And the same thing with teams. The best teams I was ever a part of, you'd run second, and I'm like, man, I screwed up on the third lap. I did this, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy that runs the tires, he's like, I screwed up. I had this other set of tires I was going to run, and I talked myself out of it. And then, the guy that tunes the motor, he's over here saying, we could have done this better. Those are the best teams. When everybody's looking at themselves saying, what could I have done better to make us better?
Accountability.
Not the teams where people are pointing at each other. So I hope we, I don't know where I stand with the current school board. I know I've gone at them a few times here in the last year. I don't personally think any of them are evil people or have nefarious intentions or anything like that. But my personal belief is we got some tough stuff coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
If you just look around at society right now, there's a lot of division and there's a lot of just tough things coming. And we need people on the school board that are going to stand up when people need to stand up and not just go with the flow,
Right.
I don't want to get along just to go along.
No.
Right?
See, I hate that. That's horrible. Yeah. Yeah. I like people that are actually wanting to make a difference and not talk about it. Now, one thing that I took away from, I listened to that, the board or whatever. We are in a public school. So that's one thing that I know that's like a light bulb moment. It's not a real big one, but like if your convictions or your beliefs or whatever are that strong, you have other options. You have, you can go to private school, you can homeschool, you can do all the other things, but not a lot of people are going to do that.
Yeah.
So to have people that are, like-minded or a leadership quality on the school board is essential. Like this is not a PTO position.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I want to make pretty clear. This is not the PTO. This is the school board. It's 100% different. I have not been on either. I've experienced the PTO with Jen, what she went through and all that, but this is a whole different animal. Yeah. So
I have done nothing with the PTOs, admittedly. Good for them. I usually pray for them and send them some money, but I have not participated. And that is honestly because it's at night in the evening when I'm usually coaching, and there's no opportunity.
I'm thankful they do it. It's just like it's coaching. It just looks different.
It is.
It's volunteer coaching. It looks
Fundraising
different.
and coaching from the backside.
And they do a wonderful job. I know most of them, and they are. It's like a part-time job, if not another full-time job for a lot of them. So hats off to them for doing it. But it's so different. Like the school board is just way different. There's bigger things. Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm learning, I've had to swallow here in the last month is, the school board doesn't need to be 5 Brads either.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
we'd hope not.
If there's 5 people in there that are all, want to fight, then we're just got chaos.
Sure.
And by saying stand up for things when they need stuff, I'm not advocating that every meeting needs to be utter chaos. Like nothing. That's just, and it's silly if someone takes it there, but.
That's what chatter pages are for.
Yeah. I wouldn't know.
Social media, I don't get on them either.
Yeah. You broke my thought with the chatter page. But but when you need to stand up for stuff, then it needs to be stood up for. And we got a little bit of change instilled in the school board meetings already. Just by going and talking and sitting down with them and saying, hey, you guys got all these rules. You don't really want to hear from a public. And yes, we do. And I'm like, well, then why are the rules set up the way they are? You got to be there before 7 p.m. You got to sign a piece of paper before they pick it up. They pick it up right at 7. You can only talk about things
at the meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can only talk about things that are on the agenda, and it's like, if you guys really wanted people to know where the people stand, you would have a period where people could talk about anything.
Yeah.
Right. And we wouldn't be so quick. And some changes happen. And now they've added a second period in the meeting right towards the end before they adjourn. And anybody that's a taxpayer can sign up. You still have to sign up before the meeting starts at 7. The sheet's out in the hallway. But you can come and talk about anything. And they've been open to say, as long as it's within the purview of the school board or the administrators that are there.
Yeah.
You obviously can't talk about just anything. But that's a little bit of change that we were able to get put in place. And, kudos to them for listening and being open to it, because it opens them up. You don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
Right. So
you have to basically call your shot before you go. Like, if you want to talk about something specific, you have to sign up for it ahead of time.
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. So the agendas are online. They put them on the website. The stuff, you can find the stuff. It's not super easy to find. The board packet's on there like 48 hours before the meeting maybe, so you can look through what they're going to look through.
Yeah.
And then if there's something you want to talk about, when you sign up, you just note what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Most people just put curriculum or transportation, or it's like the big ticket. They don't fine tune what they're going to talk about. So.
Yeah. I want to go back to the comment you made about teaching kids, financial responsibility and financial, just learning that. I think that is critical. These kids don't understand, like, if you gave them $200 cash, I'm not sure they would know how to budget that, or they just think everything's a credit card or online or an app, and they don't know how to balance a check. My kids do, but most kids don't know how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
They don't understand interest. They don't understand, I can buy these $200 pair of Jordans. Okay, cool. You make $500 a week. What else? You gonna live in those shoes? You're not going to. But I think that, and then critical thinking. I think critical thinking is the biggest blown subject in school. Some of these people can't think. Some of these grown adults can't think past their nose. They really can't. Yeah. And when there's just a little bit of adversity, it's a tough topic. We can't. They ain't saying tough. I mean, there's so many other things that are tougher. That it goes back to that softness. And I know I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but there ain't enough men out there, real men, that want to lead, like truly lead. Men are kind of looked at a little differently nowadays. Back in the 80s, 90s, then it was different. But
it's toxic now.
We're toxic masculinity. I think that is the biggest joke that I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
And if I die on the stake for it, I'll do it. You need toxic masculinity. I don't know why it's toxic, but you need some masculinity. When I heard that the interview and everybody dodging tough questions, bro, I didn't hear a tough question.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna be men, let's be men. And let's talk about it, and let's not skate around it, and let's just talk about it. Yeah. How hard is that? But
I wanted to reach out. So it's kind of one of the things. It's the candidate forum is led by the We the People Club at the high school, and it's all student ran. The teachers are there to help guide or answer questions, but they, as far as what they told us, they run the whole thing. Kids run the whole thing. And I wanted to send them messages and say things like, man, don't be afraid to ask something tough. They don't all have to be softballs. But I refrained. A few other candidates did not. I mean, they tried to skew a few things. If you notice, we all had pen and paper. That's because one candidate requested other things further than that, and then they said no, and then it kept going back and forth until we ended up with a pen and paper.
Oh.
It was just like... They're coming in to hear your genuine thoughts about their genuine questions. Do you need pre-rehearsed answers?
No.
And
it's got to be authentic.
And I think if you go back and you listen to that thing, there were several candidates that only gave pre-rehearsed answers. Yeah. And to the point that they didn't even really answer the question that was asked, because they're like, listen to the question that was asked and then listen to their response. And some of them don't even match up because they were so, now granted, maybe they were nervous. I'm
sure they were.
Absolutely. And I told a gentleman this last night because he wanted more clarification on the HRH. His wife works for HRH, and he was like, yeah, I just want more clarification on what you said. And I said, well, here's the gist of it. I had 10 minutes of thoughts, and I had 90 seconds to jam it in, and I had to try and do it in an articulate manner that it could be conveyed well enough somebody can understand it. That's tougher than I thought it was going to be.
I bet it is. Yeah, you only get 90 seconds, and I mean, what if you weren't done? And you get to your next 90, you probably want to follow up back up. I mean, you see the presidentials do that all the time too, but yeah, I bet that would be tough. I mean, like I said, everybody that's running, my hat's off to them. I think it's great. I support everybody that does it. I'm not, segregating.
Yeah.
Like I said, I offered this to all 6, and you're the only one that had the courage to do it or wanted to do it, but whatever you want to call it. So, how's the campaign part of it work, or how's your experience been in terms of? I noticed there's some support from. I don't even understand this. There's support from the other teachers. Like they had 3 people. How does that work? That doesn't seem fair.
So the whole thing. So the process to begin with, you decide you want to run for school board right now. First of all, you can't run for 2 years because that's the next.
I don't
election.
run at all, bro.
But let's just.
If you see me, I can barely jog.
If you want to run, you can't run again for 2 years. And in order to run, just to get on the ballot, you have to go down to the courthouse. Not to the courthouse, but the government building in Danville. Go to the elections office. I'm sure you can get it online, but there's a form, there's a paper. You have to get 10 signatures of people that are registered voters and live in your voting district to sign up and say they're willing to back you. It's not saying they're going to vote for you. It's just saying they're agreeing to sign on the line. You have to get 10 signatures. And the keys are they have to be registered voters and they have to live in your district, your voting district for whatever you're running for. So Guilford Township is what I had to get the signatures for. So that gets you on the ballot. Then when you go turn that in, they give you this new packet of information that's in a manila folder. It's about that thick. And you've got all this, these filing deadlines. You got to set up a bank account. You got to set up a committee. You got to do this. You got to get a treasurer. And you got to fill out a form, CFA1 form that talks about organizing your committee. And you got deadlines where you got to hit all this stuff. Every single thing you have to do after you turn in your 10 signatures has civil and financial penalties if you don't do it on time.
Oh, really?
But here you are. You're just like, all I wanted to do was run for school board. What?
Really?
So, yeah. So if you fill out this, one of them it's like $100 a day penalty for not turning in this one form on this certain date.
Dang.
Now I don't know if they actually enforce those. I don't know. It is in large capital letters in red ink on the front of the packet that says we will enforce penalties. So I'm assuming they do. But
wow.
So then now you're off to the races. Now you gotta register with the Secretary of State, set up a committee. You've got to open a bank account. You got to get people to donate. By the way, people don't like to donate to school board because it's nonpartisan. So you don't get money from Republicans and Democrats. They even if they help you in some other way or support you, just with information or just physically, you're my guy. No one gives money. Right. So most of it's self-funded. So we get all that stuff done. We get some signs ordered. We're going through the process, and I get a message from two reps. There's co-presidents of the PPEA, the Plainfield Professional Educators Association.
Okay.
Layman's terms, it's the teachers union in Plainfield.
Okay.
Teacher that's a member of the PPEA is also a member of the state PPA. They get membership through, it passes through, and then I'm sure the state goes on to the national, I'm guessing, because that's who pays all the money for the lobbyists. So they invited us all to come in and sit down with them at the library. They got a room there. They give us 20-minute segments to get to know us. Just because of who I am, my initial thought when I replied was, you're not going to get to know anything about me in 20 minutes, but okay.
I can tell you that, yeah.
I had an advisor that's ran for public office somewhere else, much higher state office. And they've set me up with some people that do this stuff for a living, and they advised me against meeting with the teachers union. They said it's going to be all gotcha stuff, unless they're supportive of you. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to be supportive of me. He said, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
So I thought about it, and I thought, whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way I was it's just the way I was raised. I didn't come from money, but our dad, he instilled in us just, the inheritance we got was the mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't let people tell you no. Like, somebody closes the door in your face, you kick it open and go to the next door. And,
yeah.
so that we don't run from challenges.
Yep.
So I went and met with them.
That's pretty cool.
One candidate came out. I was waiting in the hallway. They came, got me. I walk in. When I walk in the room, two of them turned around, looked, saw me, stood up, grabbed all their belongings, and left. Didn't say a word. Didn't say F you. Didn't say,
Really?
hey, I got to take my kid to the dentist. Nothing. Just looked up, saw me, stood up, grabbed their stuff, walked out of the room. I don't know if they left the building or they just left the room. I have no idea.
Oh, really?
Wasn't addressed in any manner by anyone that stayed. I was like, okay, that was interesting. So then they proceeded to introduce themselves. A couple people didn't talk the entire time other than introducing themselves, but it was supposed to be the officers of the PPEA and a building rep from each building. Not every building rep showed up. So we're already kind of like, okay, well. So we had the conversation. I could tell I didn't get along with one of the reps very well at all. I thought I was there to talk about like maybe test scores or things I would do to improve things or something of that nature. But that's not what it was about. It was just point blank. I really felt like the questions kept coming back to, well, if there's a problem, will you come talk to us first? If there's a problem, will you come talk to us first? When would you engage us in the process if there was a problem? And I was just like at one point in time, I actually stopped him and said out loud, I'm like, you do know we have like a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers.
Right.
And we also have a responsibility to the parents also. Like, it's just, don't get me wrong. We have great teachers, and every teacher,
Some of the best, yes.
Every teacher my kids have had, with the exception of maybe one, I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
But people hear you say anything about the PPEA or the teachers union, they're automatically like, oh, he hates teachers. All right. Well, if you want to be
that's
that,
the cancel culture we're in too.
Yeah, and if you want to be that juvenile and immature about it, go ahead.
We got kids raising kids. That's just the flat truth. There's a lot of adults out there that I think their kids are better. Personally, back to that football day.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you two that are way better than their own parents, but I'll leave it at that.
I bet you I can guess who those
there's tons of, there's more, but it blows my mind. The lack of leadership at parenting. I think that's our biggest pandemic.
Yeah.
Is not holding our kids accountable. I can tell you right now, you can ask my kids, I don't let them slip on much. Like, you got a job to do, and your job is to get A's and B's, if not straight A's. That's your job. A's and B's in our house is a standard. Mm-hmm. Anything over that, you've laid down and you've let your team down, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you've gotten straight A's, well, that's something to talk about. If it's A's and B's, that's average.
Yeah.
And we don't raise average. I mean, that's not what we're doing here. So
that was a phrase in our house growing up, as if you brought it now. Fortunately, I had an older brother, and I got to see a lot of things done the wrong way. So, I learned a lot from not having to.
And to piggyback on your inheritance of that, I don't get inheritance. I didn't either. And both my parents are dead. I didn't see a dime. Yeah. Didn't want a dime. But what they left me was a work ethic, mindset, belief in Jesus, all that stuff. Yep. And that's what's really more important than money. I mean, if you give somebody money, why would they work? Especially now. I mean, we're not going to get too deep in the political thing.
Yeah.
But my God, have you seen what happens when you just give people money?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't work on their work ethic, zero responsibility, zero accountability. They turn into, and then they have kids.
Well, we saw it during COVID, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we had such large unemployment numbers. When you're paying people to sit at home, what do you think they're going to do?
I had a guy tell me, this still irritates me, and one of my next podcasts is going to be called Chip on My Shoulder, or Chips on My Shoulder. When I started Basham Construction in like late 18 or early 19, then COVID hit 20, 21, 22. I had a guy say, man, you really took off thanks to COVID. And I lit up I was mad. I said, COVID, what's that got to do with anything? And he goes, well, everybody's stuck at home, so they're doing. I was like, bro, I was busy before and after, and I'm not giving COVID any ounce of credit for that. And he looked at me like, oh. And I was like, I'm serious. Like, we're busy because we work hard. Yeah. Period. I ain't giving credit to anything else but that. And he kind of looked at me a little different after that.
So your comment about soft society, it's this guy right here. I don't even know who you're talking about. I have no idea who he is. but he lives in a victim mentality.
Sure.
Like, get out of your victim mentality. Everybody's got bad things happen to good people every single day. Some people roll over and live in that victimhood, and other people figure out how to get past it or work through it. You know, some things you can't just get past. I get that. But you don't have to sit in it either and just let it eat at you and dwell on it every single day. That's a choice you make.
Right.
I just choose not to, you know? And I did get some money when my dad passed away. I wasn't left with nothing. But you know, the Bible says that an inheritance to your children's children. And I don't think it's talking about money. And I never read that verse the same way after my dad passed away as I did before he passed away. And after he passed away, I read that verse. It's the mentality. It's the work ethic. It's all the values that were instilled in us. And the just never quit. You can't beat a guy that won't quit.
No.
I won't quit. Like that. And that's the thing. You know, I didn't get into it in my closing 60 seconds of the school board thing. But, you know, one of the things that I was just point blank going to say it. There is no one. I don't care how you vote. It's your vote. You get one, I get one. But no one on this stage will outwork me. No one.
Guaranteed.
Period.
Guaranteed.
So, and some of that just comes from the mentality. Like, you're just not going to beat me. So
it's a killer mentality, not killer legitimately. So the people that take things literally, if you do take things literally, stop listening to my show. But it's that killer mentality. You can't beat somebody that won't quit, like you just said.
You can't.
And that's why I tell the kids, you can listen to previous podcasts with both of my kids. That's what I'm leaving them, is a work ethic. And if nobody could take that from you, I could lose everything I own today, and I could start and probably be more successful within a year because of all the things that I've learned. You can't take that away from people that won't quit.
Yep, I feel the same.
And if you don't have that mentality, then I'm not sure you're a leader, to be honest with you. And if you can't handle tough questions and adversity and people in your face and multiple people in your face all the time, I mean, we run businesses. It's in the public. It's hard to keep people happy. I'm very fortunate and thankful that most of my customers they're amazing. They're just amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate for that. I've had some that aren't. We all have.
Yep.
But I don't hate them, and I'm not mad. They made me better.
Yeah.
You know, they made me better. I had to go through hell on several projects. I won't name names. Hell, literal hell. And I got stronger for it.
Yeah.
I could have chose to say, oh, this is too tough. Somebody else do construction. No, bro. No. I'm not going to pass the baton because I'm weak. So, yeah, I love that quality in you. And don't ever lose it. I know you won't. You don't need anybody to tell you that. But yeah, that's one thing that I took from that.
It's an ingrained thing. You know what I mean? It's just ingrained. And in your comment about
it's that toxic masculinity.
It is toxic.
Damn it, Brad.
Yeah, and anyway. I'm okay with that. You know,
Me too.
But why don't we talk about the number of absentee fathers or the number of homes that don't have dads in them? Right. So society's gone downhill as the divorce rate's gone up.
Yeah.
Like, there's a correlation. You want to talk about mental health? Let's talk about it. I'm absolutely fine with that. You know, one of the candidates kept bringing up mental health, school safety. I get it.
I need a mental health day.
Okay. No one on this.
How about just take a day off?
Well,
call it that.
I'll tell you a story if you want. But the mental health and school safety, there wasn't a single person on that stage or a single person in an auditorium or a single person online watching that doesn't think we need good mental health and good school safety.
Agreed.
So if you're just going to say those buzzwords to try and inflict a reaction, an emotional reaction from parents that you're going to do something, then tell us what the heck you're going to do. Stop saying mental health over and over. Some people have called me out on it. If you watch that thing, you'll see me pick up a pen. I had 5 words written down on his piece of paper, and every time anyone on the panel said mental health or safety or diversity or I don't even remember what the other 2 were.
Well, it's like narcissism and all those words. Like, sometimes you're just being an asshole.
Yeah.
But they have these softer words that they use, and I'm like,
yeah,
I've earned that word, man. Call me an asshole.
Call me what I am.
Don't call me a whatever that little light phrase. You know, there's so many of those words, and it makes me laugh and cringe at the same time. But
we don't accept average. Society doesn't accept average. That's where we've ended up. Where we end up growing up, we had cool stuff growing up. I don't want to come from money, but we had cool stuff. We had dirt bikes and 3-wheelers.
Well, you worked for it,
and we had to. When it broke, the toolbox was in the garage. If you had a question, ask Dad a question.
Oh, you didn't have AAA
for
your bike?
Didn't have anything. You know, you need to wash it. You need to maintain it. You need to change the oil in it. You need to not run into things and tear it up, and you need to take care of it. There's a stewardship that comes with being able to have cool stuff.
And take pride in your stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and our son he just spent some of his own money that he's been saving for years. He's a tightwad just like me, but he finally came off some cash and bought a dirt bike, and he bought a nice dirt bike, and he bought it from a kid who, you know, needed to level up. The kid's a couple years older, outgrew the bike, but it's a nice dirt bike for the price he got it for.
Yeah.
You know, but we had that conversation like, you just got a nice bike. Let's take care of it. We got to clean it when we ride it in the mud. We got to keep the air filter clean and change the oil and all this other stuff. But told him point blank, I don't care if you paid for this or not. It's at my house, on my property, in my garage. And you bring home C's and D's, you won't be riding this thing, right? We pay for travel sports. Our kids have learned tons of lessons on travel sports. But if you can't get your books right, you won't be playing travel sports. Right? C's are average. Average kids don't have dirt bikes. Average kids don't play travel sports. Average kids don't get to do what other kids get to do, right? And that's, you know, that's my biggest problem when I hear words like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Equity is a BS social construct.
Agreed.
We created it. There is no such thing as equity, right? There's opportunity. There can be equal opportunity, right? We're supposed to have that. Our founding documents tell us we're supposed to have that. But if I'm willing to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and we got somebody else that's trying to convince their boss to go to a 4-day work week and they're only working, I'm putting in 8 more hours this week than you are.
Right.
We're not going to have the same outcome.
What?
Right?
I'm so glad you said that.
And when you're starting a business, I mean, man, I was the janitor, I was the bookkeeper, I was the window cleaner, I was the guy, I was doing everything. You can't do that in 8 hours.
And another thing that's driving me nuts these days is we are not the same.
No.
So I was just talking to Carrie. We had to look at some jobs today, so I got a podcast. But we were talking about how people are always like if you say, "Man, if I say I had a rough week," if I tell you, me personally, I had a rough week, you'll know it was a week from hell, right? So when I say that, or if I tell Jeff that, he knows, because I don't talk about it much. I just get my stuff done and I roll on down the road. But if I've had a hell of a week and I have some guy.
That's what adults do.
I know. Thank you. Say, oh, me too. I want to look at that guy and say, bro, we are not the same.
Yeah.
And that should be okay. We're not all the same. People are just on that pick me train or, oh, yeah, me too. No, bro. You don't even know what a 40-hour week is. You don't even know what a 10-hour week is. Most of you clowns haven't even put in an actual work week.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to my best friend Cooper, that our ancestors, if they could come back, would laugh in our faces. Mm-hmm. We don't know hard. Yeah. We don't get up at 4 a.m. and milk the cows and do all the things. Like we don't
chop wood to heat your house.
So I know that we don't have it that bad, but where we're living today, I mean, I don't want to be average. Yeah. I never have wanted to be average. Average is boring. Yeah. And I wish everybody shared that because there's a lot of beauty in getting your teeth kicked in. There's a lot of beauty in losing. Like I tell my kids when I coach football, yeah, you win and you lose, but I really look at it more like you win or you learn. Especially at the age that I coached, I didn't care about a winning record, but I did care about how you talked to your mom.
Yep.
I did care about if you got good grades. I did care if you cheered on if you're sitting on the bench, you're paying attention, cheering on your teammates. Yep. Those things I care about. But I was coaching with guys that are like, oh, I'm undefeated. Oh, I'm not using screw your undefeated. I don't care. I do not care because I guarantee you your biggest days were in high school.
Yep.
And then you left them there.
I probably know who you're talking about there too.
Well, there's more than one. There's several. But
it's true. Those are my,
I get so frustrated with that mediocrity mindset. And then okay, you're cool for 4 years. Yeah. Then what? That's like I tell Bo. I mean, I'm going to have him back on. Football just ended. He had a hell of a year, really, and he got benched half the games. And I said, man, I'm pissed for you, but I'm not going to fight your battles. Yeah. And we're going to talk about this at length because I do think it's important. I said, I've been watching you play football, and whenever you played for me, you were another player. You weren't my son. I didn't look at you as my son. Obviously, you are. But you're not the quarterback because you're my son. You're not this and that. And I watched him at practice. I watch him play. He goes to the whistle. I mean, lineman, especially a center, is probably the most scrutinized job on the field. You screw up once, oh my God, you got to get replaced. You drop a pass, that's accepted, right? It's just weird. Yeah. But I said, if you're really passionate about playing, you need to have a tough conversation to your coach. And it took me 2 weeks to get him to get the courage to do it. Mm-hmm. He finally did it. And I said, how'd it go? And he's like, well, he didn't know what to say. And I knew that. I said, I didn't tell him that. I'm like, I know. Not all coaches think the same. Not all coaches, they have pressure to win games. It's freshmen. It's not that deep. But I said, what I appreciated most is that you fought your own battle.
Yeah.
And I have your back. Yeah. I'll always have your back. But damn it, I'm not going to go send an email to the coach or go in his face like all these other parents do. Yep. I knew that coach has never been approached like that before. And to hear that was like amazing. At the end of the season, that coach came up to him, and guess what he said? Thank you. And you are the most coachable player I've ever coached. And I thought that's a compliment.
That's a compliment.
And that is 100% you, Bo, not me. It's 100% you. So we're trying to change the mindset and get these kids to get a backbone.
Yeah.
Get a set of,
Well, it said you said you believe in Jesus. The Bible says prepare the child for the path, not the path for the child.
Yeah.
That's literally a prayer we pray in our house is, or we don't know what you have in store for them, but don't let us try to course correct for you. Like you know more than we do. How can we get in your way?
Yeah.
And that's because as a parent, I don't want my kids to fail.
No.
But they need to fail. Yeah. And I also recognize that. So
that's where you learn.
We're trying to build. I tell my son this. He's like, you get on me more than you get on the girls. And, he'll always say one of his sister's names. I'm like, listen, we're raising you to be a leader. You're going to lead a family. You're going to lead children. You are going to, and that doesn't mean our daughters aren't going to have families and they're not going to lead their families also. But we believe what the Bible says, and we know that the standards for men are not the same as the standards for women. Irregardless of what everybody says they want, they don't want equality, because if they had the same standards for females, we did that in the military.
Yeah.
When women first started going in the military, it was one standard, and none of them could meet it. Now we have men's and women's standards for a reason, because it's not the same. It's not, our bodies aren't built the same. So anyway, getting off topic. But I tell him, like, son, you are going to, you have a bigger task than anyone else in this house. You can't treat your sister bad because you don't realize this, but you're involuntarily, you're teaching her that that's a normal relationship between a male and a female. That's not okay with me. Right? She doesn't need to have negative interactions with you that she may then carry on to high school or college and have some boy that mentally takes advantage of her or physically takes advantage of her because she thinks that's normal, because so I can't allow you to do that. Right? I love you. I love her. I'm not going to allow you to take advantage of her.
Right.
In the same regard, my daughters speak to their brother and that they're kids. That doesn't mean it never happens. It doesn't mean we don't have the occasion, the bump in the hallway or the punch for no reason or whatever. Especially when you have a 4-year-old that hasn't learned all the lessons yet. But these relationships are important, and they're guiding your future, whether you realize it or not. We talk to I take my kids to school. This is something that started around COVID when the buses were late all the time. And I refuse to let my kids be late to school because the school corporation can't get their affairs in order. That's another problem I had that had me run for school board. Our basic duty is to teach them, but if we can't get them there and get them home, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But what I learned when I was racing over in Australia, one of the families I spent some time with and stayed with, they have kids, 10 years down the road. So I got to see all this stuff. And I just have that. I learned from observation. I was not a kid that sat in school and took note after note after note. But I could watch something. I could see you take something apart right now, and I can put it back together.
Yep.
Like, it's just the way my brain works. Yep. But I got this, and this guy, Jack, he told me, he said, the best part of my day is taking Ryan to school and picking Ryan up. The conversations we have in that 15 minutes each way. Yeah. He's like, I learned so much. And we're seeing a decade later, we're seeing the fruits of that when, my wife's talking to one of our daughter's friends' moms, and they say something like, "Oh, well, my daughter doesn't tell me that." Well, we get 15 minutes of isolated time in the car each direction when their brains are full of everything happened today, and it's just a download, right? A kid that rides the bus for 45 minutes, they've already processed all that, and they get home, and there's nothing left to talk about.
They're ready to hit the video games or whatever.
Or something. But our kids, we have a gaming console. Our kids don't get to play them. Like, we find reasons to take it away. Yeah. Rainy days, cold winters, our kids don't have cell phones. Our kids don't have social media. There are too many studies that have proven how negatively it affects girls, especially. You want to talk about mental health? There's a study that came out that they did. So Indiana passed the cell phone ban, right?
Yep.
They've studied this across the U.S. and states that have the same thing. Schools that ban them completely have better social structure. They have everything is better. The behavior issues improve. The attention spans in class improve. Grades are improving, everything. And you know who it helps the most?
Who?
The kids that are in the bottom half on the poverty. Like, if you had a scale of poverty, it helps the kids on the bottom half of the poverty cycle.
Are they using it, though, to help? I mean, what?
I don't
why?
know.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's
interesting.
It's just what the study showed. It's not the top half that it helps to get rid of cell phones. It's the bottom half.
Oh.
But so just taking a cell phone out in a 5-minute passing period and looking at social media or reading an email or a text or something, it takes that kid's brain, the study they did, it takes them 25 to 30 minutes to decompress and get away from whatever they just read before they can pay attention into the next class. So you got a 50 or an hour, 50-minute or 60-minute class, and it takes half of that for the kid to decompress the social media they read. Yeah. Just to pay it, like, why?
It's not very productive. Yeah, it's really not.
And where does it come from? So
I'm shocked that they allow them in the schools at all. But I know
they all
there's
have different policies, and some teachers follow the policies, some teachers don't. Some of them, their practices or procedures are not policies. It just needs to be uniform across the board. And if we're going to have a serious conversation about mental health, that's a component that needs talked about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot to that mental health deal.
You know, they say girls spend their day gets 2 hours longer when schools ban social media and phones, because girls, on average, get up that much earlier to make sure they look perfect in their outfit and all this stuff, because they have a fear someone might take a picture of them not looking their best.
Yeah, that's a real
thing.
Can
you imagine that? Like, walking around and I don't care. Like, I'm wearing a hoodie and jeans and old tennis shoes.
That's why I'm not a celebrity. Look at Adam Sandler. That dude walks around it's awesome.
He goes a little too far. My OCD wouldn't let me look like him.
That would be either. I'd be in flip-flops and shorts every day.
I would, but they would probably match. I wouldn't be
mine would match too.
Pink and green.
Are you
and
a
yellow.
flip-flop guy?
I am. My kind of rule on vacation is we're going somewhere I can wear flip-flops, and I don't usually even take socks.
I like it. Yeah.
Usually. So I am a flip-flop guy. When you coach, I'm still coaching softball.
It's fall ball right now.
Well, so we got out of the local stuff years ago, just because the softness and whatever. And we found that every town had different rules. So even if your kid makes the all-star team or you play Alliance, every town you go to has different rules, and it was so confusing and frustrating for the kids. We just plucked a group of kids out and
started your own or something?
Well, we just joined up. Havoc used to be all baseball.
Oh, okay.
And then Steve Houston is in charge of it now, and he let us tag onto that. So we have the insurance, and
that's cool.
We have mostly Plainfield girls. We've had to adjust that over the years just because as it gets more competitive, it's just hard to do. But we have a good core group of Plainfield girls that we're making better at softball. We've added a second team that's almost all Plainfield girls too, but yeah, one of my favorite things about coaching is what you said. When the coaching part isn't even, I can get excited when you've been working on something and they put a play together and some bunt defense and you've been working hard and they make a play and it looks beautiful and everybody moves. It's like, yes, I didn't waste my time. But in the same token, when I hear a kid walk up and tell me they forgot their glove because their mom didn't put it in their bag, and I have a chance to say, whose glove is it?
Yeah.
Like, why is it your mom's problem?
That's what we need.
Your mom got your little brother in the car. Your mom had to go pick your sister up at school, get you to practice. All you had to do was get the required equipment and get in the car, and it's her fault?
Coaching softball, I coached that, basketball and football, and coaching girls softball was probably my favorite. And the reason why they work harder, the girls work harder than the boys, and I told my son that. Now that they're fresh, I mean, it's probably 50-50. I don't know. But my biggest thing was like my daughter was always scared and timid all the time, and now she's the polar opposite. She's a lot like me, which is absolutely terrifying. She's gorgeous, just like her mother, which is great, which is terrifying too. But the confidence, I'll never forget. I wish I remembered this young lady's name. She was just a little short thing, and she was so scared to hit the ball, but she wanted to pitch. And I'm like, hey, if you stick to the program, we're going to get you pitching. Well, fast forward 3 more years, I'm coaching softball again. I'm like, holy cow, the starting pitcher is that little girl.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking credit for that. The point of this story is somebody had to give her the confidence that you can freaking do that.
Yeah.
And I saw her 3 years later, and I'm like, I teared up. I'm being dead serious. I'm like, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And in my businesses, it's the same thing. I want everybody that works with me to level up. And if you have aspirations of doing your own thing, guess who's going to be the biggest cheerleader? Me.
Yeah.
If you leave me to go do something great, guess who's going to be support? Now, if you screw me over, probably won't be the same outcome. But if it's like, hey, I'm trying to do that, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So why would you want to hold somebody back? So building that confidence in people is really one of my missions in life, is why I do half the things I do.
Yep.
And I know you share the same thing.
Two kinds of people when I started my business. 2 kinds of people I ran into. Business owners that had been there, done that, and struggled and realized it, and were there to offer advice and listen and sometimes just listen to me vent. And then there were others that had been there, done it, struggled, and were like, screw you. I had to figure it out. You figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be the first guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that's like, man, we don't all have to start from scratch.
Right.
If I can help you out and give you some advice, and I love that. Multiple people that have worked for me have gone on to do their own thing or gone on to bigger and better things. I know that window cleaning is not a career-ending job. I get that. But while we have them, we're going to love on them. We're going to teach them. The financial, man, some of the kids that come to me that can't do anything with finances and can't fill out a W-9 or an I-9 form or the tax forms or anything. And I'm like, well, listen, I can't legally help you with this, so you need to go talk to mom or dad. But this is stuff you need to know. You know? And likewise, when kids quit, if they're quitting and it's over something silly, like they just couldn't be on time. And it's not like in the beginning, when I first started my business, if you had a job interview at 8 a.m. and I told you to bring your driver's license and your proof of car insurance and you showed up and didn't have one, I would just be like, see ya.
Yeah.
Or
if you showed up at 8, I'd say see you too.
Yeah. The world's changed now, and we got to live with things that, and I don't want to change my standards, but you can also do it, it's kind of like, there's an old marriage joke. It's like, you can do it your way with half your stuff or her way with all your stuff. It's the same way. I'm like, I can continue to do it that way, or I can adapt a little bit. We're not really killing anything.
To piggyback on that, the world's changed. I did a podcast. People's changed. There you go.
Opinion.
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd agree with that too. Doesn't mean I have to. That's the whole thing is, the world's soft, the world's this, and people are this, and blah blah blah. Well, I don't have to be. I might stand out and be the asshole for a while.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hold to my core values, my beliefs, and the things that got me here. I think the biggest compliment that you can give somebody is paying it forward. So, for example, if somebody pours into you in your career, your dad, your mom, people that have worked with you to get you to where you are, I think you owe it to them. I think you owe it to them to double up for somebody else. Pay it forward. I think it's very critical. My father-in-law is one of the most generous guys I've ever met. My mother-in-law too, and my dad was that way. It was always, he'd give the shirt off his back. That's just how he was, and that's how I am because of him. I don't do it because I like to. I mean, some days
do you post all your good deeds on Facebook like everybody else?
No, gosh, no. Don't get me started on social media. What a joke. Anyway,
gave the guy on the street $20 a day.
Oh yeah, let me video this and make myself look good.
Yeah, why couldn't you just give him 20 and shut up? And
there you go. Just do it.
Do you have to break your own arm patting yourself on the back?
Right.
Or can you just?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people are needing that. And when I first got on social media, like years ago, I probably went down that rabbit hole because I didn't. And then I was like, this is stupid. Actually, Jen pointed it out, and she was right. It's dumb. And that was years ago. But, yeah, I think it's your duty to pay back and to give back. And it doesn't have to be money. It could be your time. It could be your advice. It could be giving people an opportunity, stuff like that. So we've been out this about an hour. Let's ask a couple more questions.
Let me tell you a quick
a
funny. Well, it's not funny. Just want to tell you.
This is a comedy show, so it better be funny.
I have some better jokes, but most people don't get my jokes. I had some good jokes for the candidate forum, and my wife told me the night before, she was like, "Problem is, I get your humor, but people listening, if they don't get their humor, you're going to sound like a jerk." And I'm like, "All right, well, but your coaching stuff, how things circle back." One of the coolest things that's happened this whole school board deal is I'm running, and a guy reaches out to me whose kids go to Plainfield. They actually live in Avon. They're transfer students. But Delaney, I coached Delaney in soccer since she was 3 years old, and she's 11 now. But she plays in Westside, and Westside Junior Academy is ran by a gentleman that was my varsity soccer coach in high school at Avon. And most of the guys that coach there are all kids I grew up playing soccer with. It's just a fun environment for us. And I get a group of 3 and 4 year olds, and if you've ever, I don't know how young you've coached, what age group, but 3 and 4 year olds playing soccer, half of them are crying. 2 or 3 of them have their mom out there with them because she knows they won't go if she doesn't go. I've seen the gamut, but this guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you coached my son in soccer. He was 3. We really liked you." And there's other aspects to it. They obviously have, similar worldviews and things, but, three individual people have contributed to my campaign, and that was one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Which was kind of like, holy cow, so you don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's real cool. That's full circle right there.
You don't know what kind of impact you're having.
Yeah.
And, now his kid has a very unique, contagious laugh and smile, so I knew who he was. Yeah. I remembered him. I don't remember every kid I coached when they were 3 and 4, but that was pretty cool.
It's fun watching them grow up. So that's why it's, I guess getting back to coaching, and the freshman football team or whatever, like what a lot of people don't realize why some of us dads are a little vocal. There's some just jackasses. I mean, I'm just going to say this. Plainfield, you got to do better. I mean, listen to yourselves. Just do better in the stands. I'll just leave it as that. I mean, we look. There's games that I just want to just leave because I'm embarrassed. But I just think that coaching part of it is so influential to these kids and how we do it. We show them how to do it right. We don't do everything right.
Yeah, but I fail.
There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of not doing it.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. But we got a lot of improvement in the stands. It was pretty rough this year. I also had something else I wanted to say, and I forgot, but that's why we do a live podcast. So we forgot. We'll catch it on the next one. So one question I had, if elected, what are your goals for the school board?
Yeah.
Which I hope you are.
Yeah. I'm going to steal a line that Mark Shedovich said to me when I was in his office. He was talking about when he took over from – Judd Wolf retired and Mark came in. He's the assistant superintendent, but he's the CFO. He handles all the budgeting and finance and things. And he said, he inherited a Cadillac, right? And we don't need to crash the Cadillac.
Sure.
If elected, I'm inheriting a Cadillac. I don't need to crash it. In sports analogy, best offense is a good defense.
Yep.
We need to protect and preserve what's already been established and is already in place. We need to keep some of this absolute garbage that's out there out. That's first and foremost. I would like to find a way to interject some more financial literacy because I think it is paramount. I think it's why we have a crisis of people with, 100,000 plus in student loan debts and they can't find a job because nobody ever sat them down and said, you don't have to go to Butler because your mom went to Butler.
Right.
Right. You don't have to go to IU because your mom went to IU. Like, we need to figure out what's best for you and then what can we afford. And there are so many more options available to kids, and the school system's doing a good job of this. So don't take this like it's,
sure,
nobody taking a shot at them. But, some kids don't need to go to 4-year colleges. Or if your financial means aren't to go live on campus. We have stuff right here at Made. Indiana State's right here. IU and Purdue are both downtown. Ivy Tech, there are things available. And we just need to put in place, like, just the financial literacy portion. If you're going to get out of college and you're going to be a social worker making $36,000 a year, maybe we don't need to go to a private college at $80K a year. And you're going to forever, you're going to be paying that off, right?
Yeah.
And although I think we're now starting to talk about the trades and other things like that, I don't necessarily think some of the other advice is great. I think we need to be more in perspective. Like, okay, it's admirable you want to be a social worker, and certain people have a heart for it. I don't, but here's what kind of salary you can expect with that job. Let's find something that correlates with that.
Yeah.
Can you get your degree locally for half as much money? Okay, let's go that route.
Yeah.
Stuff of that nature. I'd also, as I've been on this journey, the more and more teachers I talk to, I just hear that the teachers don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like they're supported. They don't feel like they have a seat at the table. I kind of bashed on the PPEA a little bit, and that really had to do with one lady who was just overly vocal, and I don't agree with the stuff she had to say. I think that the teachers at the high school need to find a new building rep, if I'm being honest. That lady wanted to talk about she used to work at IPS and her husband works at Avon, and all I heard about was, Avon had more national merit scholars than us because, and I stopped her and I said, well, what would you contribute that to? And she said, well, when you look at that picture, there's so much diversity in that picture. And I'm like, diversity is why they have more merit scholars? She's like, well, I used to teach in IPS, and everybody knows that diversity is what lifts up a school system and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm just thinking, dadgum lady, if IPS is so great and Avon's so great, why the hell do you work in Plainfield?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Like, why'd you leave IPS? If it was this, unicorn of a job that was so awesome, why'd you come out here to the sticks?
Yeah.
So, but those are the things, I think we need to stop talking about diversity. We need to talk about merit, right? I don't care if my kids walk in school 7 periods a day and they have nothing but black teachers and Asian teachers. I don't care if their teachers are English or Australian or whatever. Are they the best person to teach that subject to my kid today?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh man. Yeah. You just got to be the best person for the job. Like, what's outside of school? I know we're talking about school board, but after school, we've ran through years of, we got the first female this or the first whatever this and that, but it's because everybody's the first this. That's what everybody's focused on. Mm-hmm. Instead, we need to be focused on who's the best person for the job. We've got a big election coming up in 11 days, right? We're not going to talk about the presidents, but I'm not really interested in personalities, if I'm being honest. I want somebody that can run the country and that has the United States of America. Yeah. It's the best interest, period. I don't care what you look like, all that jazz. I think that's just, it's a waste of time. And everybody's focused on that stuff.
A couple of Sundays ago, our pastor said out loud, he said, I just want you guys to think about something and pray about something. And that is, if you were voting and the sole criteria was which candidate would serve my neighbor the best, right? Not even your own self-interest, but which one would serve your neighbor the best? Who would you vote for? Because we do have two candidates, and personalities don't mean anything to me. If I'm it's pure on personalities, I don't like either one of them.
Same.
Either one of them. Trump has some good things to say, but his bedside manner sucks.
Agreed.
Some people have told me on this campaign trail that I fall into that same category. Like, your message isn't bad, but it's a little aggressive. Okay.
I kind of like aggressive personally. that's me.
But which person puts you in a better position in 5 years? Which person puts your kids in a better position in a decade? When your grandkids come along, where's the country going to be in a better position? And you can hate mean tweets and orange faces, but there was no wars. Everybody thought this guy was going to get in there and get the nuclear codes on his wrist and blow up the world, and nothing happened. Yeah. Not only did nothing happen, the rest of the world went, damn, we better not mess with this guy.
Right. Yeah. No, I
don't have any problem saying I'm voting for Trump. If you want,
I don't.
If you want to know the truth, when it came time to put yard signs out around town, you got a couple choices. You want to walk door to door and talk to every single. In a perfect world, yeah, I do. I want to walk door to door and see if I can convert people.
Sure.
I do want to do that, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And that sounds awful, but I don't. I narrowed things down to where I saw areas where there were Trump signs or Trump flags, or if I saw the other party's stuff, I knew not to go knock on the door and waste my time. It's just because I introduced myself. I said who I was, what I'm running for, and where I stood. Conservative values and
not a lot of swing voting right now.
I'm not for the crazy stuff.
Right.
I'm not. One of the most interesting questions that came up was will you follow state law? Of course I'm going to follow state law. I
don't want to talk too much about the questions of that. I heard that too, and I thought, who's going to disagree with that?
Yeah. But can I tell you, the black and white of that is they ask that question in a manner where everyone in the room thinks is a black and white question, right? Are trans girls allowed to go in the girls' bathroom? In Indiana, they are, because it was overturned. We made it. The House passed it. The Senate passed it. The governor vetoed it. The House and Senate came back together and overruled the governor. It became law in Indiana. It went to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, which is a liberal judge appointed by Obama up in Wisconsin, kicked it back down. Right now, Martinsville and another school district are caught up in litigation over it because they won't allow it, right? So they're being sued.
Sure.
This is an interesting point that Danielle Bell is sure to tell. If you listen to her speak, she talks over and over about school board members can be held personally liable, and you can be. And
you can be.
You can be.
Okay.
So, and she's much more articulate about it because she's done more research on it. But let's just say this kid who went to the ACLU and then they sued Martinsville. If Martinsville, I don't know anything about Martinsville. Let's just say there's
if you go to a Plainfield football game, it's going to sound like Martinsville.
Yeah.
And that is a jab.
Let's just say there's a five member board. If that kid sues them for $5 million and wins, they're each liable for $1 million.
I did not know that.
You can personally be held liable. Now, most of the time, like the court litigation stuff that's going on, the school lawyer would handle that. You're not personally paying for all that. But if you lose, if you put something in place like the bathroom thing that is a law, and you say, no, we're not going to do it, and you get sued for it, then you can be personally liable. Not just anything, but something like that where you directly go against the law.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, we got all this Title IX stuff with the trans girls and boys sports and some other stuff. And again, Indiana said we weren't going to do that. Went to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. She kicked it back down. Same liberal judge said, yeah, you are going to do it. And then Todd Rokita got they're going back and forth right now. They're still kicking it up. And our attorney general, who's the highest law dog in the state of Indiana, said, until this is settled, this is where we stand. Trans girls will not be playing in girls' sports. And it's kind of floating out there. It's not black and white, right? Depending on what lawyer your school uses, it can be interpreted many different ways. And there are school boards that are on opposite sides of it right now. So the stuff's not as black and white as try and make it out to be.
Yeah, that goes back to you're in a public school. And that's one of my biggest takeaways that I just took for granted. You just think you go to school, everything is hunky-dory. But when you're really in it, it's not. And it's changed. I mean, when we were in school, we had different problems. But we all had problems, and we dealt with them.
There's behind the scenes stuff with all this stuff.
I'm gonna have my guidance counselor. I haven't told you this, Jeff, but she sits her and Coach. They sit about 20 seats down from the Colts game where we go. Like I can see Coach and Mrs. Cokert, but that lady was our guidance counselor. I went to a single A high school.
Oh, your guidance counselor.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were talking about
our guidance. And that lady
is
responsible for so many career paths because she was just to the point, and she was kind about it. And she got to know the kids.
Yeah.
And she literally said, "You're going to be doing that." She called her shot on a lot of us, and she was right.
Yeah.
That lady is like the most sound person I've ever met, and I'm going to have her on. I can't wait to have her on because she's seen it back in the 80s, 90s, and then she's seeing it today. I think she just retired. But one of the most wonderful, wonderful women I've ever met in my life.
I'm glad you had that experience. That is not the experience I had.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have her on because she's seen both sides of it, and it's gonna be kind of an interesting conversation. So
I walked into my high school guidance counselor's office on that day where you get called down and we're going to talk about your career. And I think about a sophomore in high school, maybe Avon High School, and I was traveling a lot, racing. I raced since I was a kid. I didn't play a lot of sports. I played soccer, but I didn't play a lot of other sports. I raced. And sat down. She said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I said, "A race car driver." And she goes, "All right, no, really. What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I was like, "Just the audacity." I was like, "You got to be kidding me, lady."
Yeah.
First of all, you don't know jack about me because you've done nothing to learn anything about me, But then you have the audacity to say that without knowing what I do every single weekend. You have no idea what I do, Most kids in high school, when they job shadow, did Bo go anywhere yesterday?
Well,
Wednesday?
I took Brooklyn to the Smiley Show.
Okay.
I know all those guys, so Brooklyn
Yeah.
got to do from 7 to 9. We were in the studio, and she did all that. And then Bo,
that's a real experience.
it is. Bo went to the gym with me afterwards, and then to work with me afterwards, which he does that anyway. So job shadowing around our house happens all the time. The kids go work for Jen all the time at Shirt Tails.
They should. It's a family
They
business.
do it. Yeah, they do a lot of that. I'm not saying their work ethic is where I'd like to see it. It's not.
Well,
but we work on it, and we hold them accountable. Yeah. So,
does Brooklyn work harder than Bo? You don't have to say that if you don't want.
It just depends. So, Jen is a very, very hard worker. Very hard worker. And Brooklyn kind of adopts that. Bo, he's a lot like me. We work very, very hard, but if we can go to the woods and set a tree stand or checker camp, we're going to go do that.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
But I joke with my kids. I'm like, I'm the laziest guy you've ever met. And they're like, Dad, because I do bust my ass, but I try to earn that time on the couch. Yep. So when old Dad sits down at 8 o'clock, I'm done. I shut my phone off, and I'm going to zone out for a minute. I fall asleep at 9:15. I go to bed. I'm pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But that's we just instill that work ethic, and there's zero options. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So.
We had that career day or that job shadow day in high school, and I was at the Indy 500 with a team doing a test. I sat there all day at a Firestone tire test, and this is in my file. Back then, you had to say what you were doing and where you were going and get approval for it, and I did all that, and then she still laughed at me, and I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that because that's just one of the chips that it's not bad to have chips on your shoulder.
Oh, it's my favorite thing.
It's motivation a little bit.
It's my favorite thing.
I think if more people would actually just, I don't know, different things motivate everybody.
I
So
put
not
it on
everybody
my
needs a
story
chip,
a
but
lot.
still.
Like Fridays, I almost put the song. I listen to some pretty weird music, but Get in the Ring with Guns N' Roses is on my workout thing, and I put all that stuff on my story because I do have a lot of chips on my shoulder. There's a lot of people that talk crap about me, all the things, and I'm like, bring it. All my haters, all that stuff is inspiring to me. So please keep doing it.
Yeah, right.
I don't run away from it. It's very, very important though.
The thing they don't get is I don't need your affirmation.
No.
I don't. You don't validate me or anything I've done.
No.
And I don't care. My favorite are the folks. Yeah, whatever.
Like the critics. I love a good critic that's never done
that's
shit.
never done anything.
I mean,
oh my goodness.
Now the guys that I tell my kids this,
you
the
deal
guys
with them every day.
I do.
The gentlemen in the building code buildings around the state of Indiana that have never owned a piece of property in their life, but they get to tell you what you can do. Can and can't do with yours has always been a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
But.
I take advice. I tell the kids, don't take advice from anybody that you don't look up to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like them. There's a lot of people that I look up to that I don't really like. I don't hate anybody.
I'll go one step further with you on that.
Yeah.
I won't take criticism from somebody I wouldn't take advice from.
That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
you said it better than
I don't need your
That's
criticism.
the long
route. If I don't care to
yeah.
get advice from you, I don't need your criticism.
You nailed it. You nailed it. All right, let's wrap this thing up. I got one more question. It's a very simple question. What are your aspirations if you were to be elected? Do you have aspirations to take it any further in terms of politics, or is this kind of is this just something you want to?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything on mind of going any further. I do not see myself being a 24-year board member and trying to control something for a long period of time, or be a part of it for that long period of time, because I think as other people come into the community and their kids come into the school system, they need to get involved. I mean, if you watch that video, the one thing that I think needs to happen, Tori Murray is nail on the head, 1,000% correct. People need to get involved.
Oh, I agree.
Go to a board meeting, read the packet. Even if you just do one a year, just to check a box that says you got engaged, you read through the packet, you had questions, you went and asked, they answered them, whatever, follow up. Maybe they didn't answer them because they couldn't. They had to follow up with you a week later. get involved. There's nothing that says you can't go and just say, man, you guys just redid the floor in the gym, and I just wanted to come tell you how much I appreciate that floor's needed done for years. Like, there's a lot of people behind the scenes. It doesn't always have to be criticism, but I just want to see parents get involved.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Don't sit on. We can all sit on the sidelines, and I do. I still complain about things. Everybody does, but I'm running. If people don't agree with if enough people don't agree with what I've said, and I don't get elected, I'm fine with it.
Sure, yeah.
Like I said, it's not going to validate me if I'm on or I'm not on. I will find something else to do.
Yeah.
We've owned many businesses. We've started business from scratch. We've ran them up. We've sold them. We've done the gamut.
Yep.
I can do it again.
Yep.
You made a comment earlier. If I lost it all tomorrow, I think I could rebuild
it. Oh
yeah. For the record, Lord, I don't want to lose it all tomorrow.
Too. Yeah, I'm not asking for it. Yeah,
there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there. If I did,
yeah,
I have the faith I could redo it.
That's what I'm getting at.
I have the faith.
And don't if we misspeak or I'm not an English major, and I don't do podcasts for a living yet. But if we misspeak, don't take everything like to the letter, word for word. I mean, we may trip up on some words. We may, fumble, whatever. We're not going to ask Jeff to edit everything we do here, so otherwise he probably wouldn't do this for us anymore. So
I'd fire him. He forgot to start. He didn't start the clock.
Well, I've got it right here on my iPad, so I've known how time we've been on here.
All these tricks you got.
But no, I genuinely wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on here. I know it's not easy. I want to say thank you to the other 5 people that are running. It takes a lot of courage, and I just thank all of them for doing it. It's really not something that's that easy.
No, it's not, and it's been more labor intensive than I thought. We've had wackos out there steal yard signs that we paid for.
Dumb.
We've had people damage yard signs. We've had my wife and I started fish window cleaning in town over 11 years ago from scratch. It didn't exist. We've built it into what we've built it into. We've been able to buy a building for it to reside in. We have employees.
I saw that. That's nice.
We have employees that we provide jobs for that have, the ripple has been awesome.
Yeah.
We've had employees that have gone on to be pilots. We've had employees, that go back to school or whatever. And we've also had not success stories.
Yep.
But, people they don't know any of that, and they send crappy emails to Fish Corporate in St. Louis saying, this guy's character's terrible. You should You should take his franchise away. Or you don't want to be associated with this guy.
That's just like a Google review. Yeah, half of those are bought.
But when Ryan, most people, there's a podcast idea for you. Most people don't understand that you can improve the way your business looks on Google, Yelp, Facebook, or any other platform by just pumping cash into it.
Yeah, I had a contractor we worked together with.
Business Bureau also, by the way.
Yeah, he's like, can you give me a 5-star review for this and that? And I said, are you kidding me? You're asking me to give you a 5-star review? How about if I think you're worth 5 stars, I just hop on there and do it?
Yeah, right.
But I have people that, I have a perfect blah, blah, blah. All that crap is bought and paid for. Yeah. I don't get into the Google review thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a joke.
Yeah.
I steer away from a lot of that. It's a way for somebody to take their day out through a keyboard on an app and think they got you. And that's just loser mentality, but we'll stop with that. But
right.
Anyway, thank you so much for being on. I'd love to have you on afterwards, see how things went. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody that's running. And I wish the best for everybody and let the right people win. So have a great day, y'all.